What's up guys, DukeSloth here, and today we're talking about the patch notes for Season 5, patch 5.1. There's a lot to go through. I will try and do my best to make it not too long, but it's still going to be long because it's a lot. We'll start with the god skins and then go right into the balance changes, rather everything around the map as well. Keep some parts rather brief, others longer. Let's go. We have a new Jingwei skin, demonic skin looks pretty cool, looks cool in game. We have a Kukulin skin, also looks pretty cool on the card at least, and the brief look in game was also pretty good. Then we have a Skadi skin. I don't know how exactly to get this, but this is definitely part of the season ticket somehow. And the same will go for another skin that comes later. We have this Knight Athena skin, which looks pretty cool. Then we have various recolors, kind of like last season. We have a Bellona recolor, we have an Aphrodite recolor, where we also have the hair fixed up from the original model. So this looks a little bit better now. Then we have a Hoyi recolor, we have a Susano recolor, that in my opinion is hardly different, but hey. Then we have Hired Gun Ares, if you like blue Ares, I guess. And then we have Demonic Thanatos, which is kind of like Archon Thanatos. You can't really see it fully here, but it very much looks like the last stage of Archon Thanatos as a demon, basically. Then we have the Morrigan reward from Ranked. And last but not least, we have Archon Thanatos recolors being gold and diamond skins being recolored so that they fit with the new color scheme, whatever. All right, quickly going through the voice packs. Turn on your volume if you're on your headphones because these might be loud. Let's go.
This place just reeks of mortality. Well, not for long.
Keep them coming. He hungers.
People seek me for the best parts in town. You need something? You bet I got it.
I am the messenger of the gods, and I will bring glory to Olympus.
Ah, still got the French accent going, okay? We got all these recolors, nothing new here, and then we get Demonic Thanatos.
Once all my powers have been restored, I will be stronger than any god.
These gods, they fight for the love of mortals. But honestly, who needs mortals anyway?
What you can see here, the Thanatos killed rope, whatever you want to call it, basically. Very much like the Archon. Then we got a loading frame for the season ticket. We got the music theme Ragnarok Metal, which is probably part of the next Ragnarok part bundle. Jump Stem Candy Hearts. In the Fountain effects My Hearts. Global Emote Tears of Joy. Loading Skin Ragnarok bundles. Chaos bundle. Then we have the map overhaul for Conquest. Now, this is a lot. This is a ridiculous amount. I'm going to try and keep it as minimal as possible here. So all the models for everything have been updated. All the minions, all the harpies, cyclopses, whatever, Gold Fury Fire Giant, you name it. We also have some things being changed out. Basically the whole map's visually overhauled. The size is different. It's 20% wider overall, increased by roughly 20%. And the jungle has been changed. We have a more winding path, more walls in between. We have the speed buff at the back and the back harpies where the speed buff were. So basically swapping places. And we have the oracles a bit further from the Gold Fury, and jungle fog is back. Most of you know this already. Then the map is also symmetrical on both sides now. The map is divided into two halves by a rift in the center, providing a clear reference for players crossing into enemy territory. And then you have major locations like the Gold Fury and Fire Giant have elements that are located higher than other map features, so you can see them across the map, giving players clear landmarks while moving through the more narrow and windy jungle. Then we have the Titans now encased in crystal, and they got broken when they lose their damage immunity. Phoenixes are linked to the Titans, so that gives a bit more often a visual indicator of how they're connected in terms of the health and everything. And the pads under towers and Phoenixes will now light up on the current target's screen, and only the target screen and not the team, so you know you're being attacked, to indicate that they're being targeted. And then we have various changes to XP. The most important one, I think, is the first one, reduced XP split bonus from 50% to 20%. So instead of having 75% each when you kill a target together, a minion together, you will now have 60% each, which is significantly less rewarding when it comes to sharing XP on targets. Minions hit by tower will now retain 25% of their gold reward instead of losing all of it. So even if you get pushed completely on the tower, you will still get a little bit of gold that way. I think the last hit bonus would also still apply, so it would make sense to last hit minions under tower in that case. Then minions and jungle monsters will now gain additional XP and gold over time. That's coming later. Respawn time for buff camps is reduced from 180 to 120 seconds. For middle harpies from 120 to 90 seconds. For back harpies from 80 to 60 seconds. So overall a much quicker respawn for everything. Means you basically run through the jungle clear all the time. There are some things related to that which are more specific, which is at 25 seconds the speed buff will spawn, at 30 seconds the minions will clash, and at 35 seconds the other minions and camps will spawn, so the jungler can get the speed before lane. Conquest start time increased from 60 seconds to 90 seconds. Map NPC adjustments. We got the jungle buff here first, the jungle monsters. All jungle monsters will now reward an additional 9 XP and 2 gold every 3 minutes. These rewards accumulate over time. I've done some rough calculations with that. For example, for the buff holder camp, the XP goes even around 15 minutes and the gold goes even around 18 minutes. If you look at the other camps, it's a bit different. It's a bit earlier because some just didn't give that much XP to begin with. And every camp apparently gets the same flat value increase now every 3 minutes. So for some camps, the value is higher at 9 minutes. For others, it's 15 minutes. But you can expect that the XP before the 15 minutes mark overall will be lower and it will be a lot slower. And after that, it just kind of goes to the same level and then goes higher from there. So snowballs a little bit, so to speak. But you also have to compensate for all the XP that you missed out on before. Then we have the same for the small minions, for the harpies, and the oracles that have been moved a little bit as well. Also different values. I'm not going to read out all of these. You can read them if you want in detail. You get the idea of what will happen to them. And then we have the speed buff, movement reduced from 20% to 15%. On the other hand, you can have it up all the time. And that's another change that will be relevant here. And purple void buff added 5% protection reduction. Not to be underestimated, can be quite decent against certain targets, extra 5%. And more worthwhile to be considered by hunters as well now. Not only by guardians, I think, though you still have to be in the aura range. Then we have the jungle changes with in terms of objectives. So, as stated above, we've added XP, gold scaling component to many camps so that your value increases with the game length. The Pyromancer, Gold Fury, and Fire Giants are no exception. This increases the importance of objective control as the match progresses towards the middle and late game. So Gold Fury starts at 5 minutes now, but she starts with more base health to compensate for that, because otherwise, she'd get health per minute. She's got some changes to protections through the health. The rewards in terms of XP is lowered and gold is lowered, but increases over time still, and all that kind of stuff. Once again, not going into too much detail here. You can read all of this. Will definitely have an impact on the value of the Gold Fury overall. The Pyromancer is a bit more important in terms of what it does now. It replaces the Bottle Demon, and the team that defeats the Pyromancer has their fountain buffed for 90 seconds. Upon exiting the fountain, players will gain 40% movement speed for 15 seconds. Entering combat will immediately remove this buff. So you basically get a swift wing for running out of a base, as long as this buff is active, which is 90 seconds. That I think is quite interesting. It's a very interesting approach to how this works. And also this guy gets some XP, team XP and gold spooling increase over time as well. So has a bit more value in that regard too. And you're not as forced to just go to Fire Giant. You can go anywhere from there, and you can't get caught out at the portal either. You're just gonna be fast. Fire Giant also has some values changed, some bit power changes, bit health changes. But the more important thing is that it has a completely new attack pattern. A story of its own, basically. No more lava pools, just cleaves, then multi-fireballs in between and fire walls around him, like basically keeping you in a cage that kind of replaces the pools. So a lot of things regarding that. And after the 25-minute mark, there is an enhanced Fire Giant with extra benefits to the buff, extra magical power, extra physical power, and extra regeneration and extra damage against structures. And then the minions have also been changed. So minions will now reward an additional 5 XP and 1 gold every 3 minutes. These rewards accumulate over time. Once again, this bowling just goes up. Everything goes up over time now. Lane minions will now deal 40% less damage to guards. Lane minions will now prioritize towers, phoenixes, and titans over minions deployed both on pets. That means that if you push a wave into tower and the enemy wave is already coming, they will still attack the tower first, which I think is, in my opinion, a more favorable change. Obviously, you have to pay more attention to the minions that way, because if they're left on their own, they will still go for the tower. But often enough, you have the situation where the minions would kill the tower, but then suddenly turn away to attack the other minions, which is just super annoying. And I'd rather have it this way and have them attack the more important target first. The XP reduced for the archers quite heavily, like from 45 to 25, almost half down. Base health a little bit increased. And same with the melee minions, even though the decrease is not quite as heavy, from 60 to 45. Base health increased to 420. And the brute minions, I also have the XP decreased by 15. And then have their base health increased to 805. So all a bit tankier, less XP, and the more gold and XP over time later. Meaning in the early game, it's going to take you longer to clear. You're going to get less for clearing. And then in the later stages, you get more rewarded. Then we have changes to Towers and Phoenixes. Towers and Phoenixes will now deal additional 15% damage to minions. The protections are reduced on the tier 1 towers from 150 to 125 and on the tier 2 towers as well as on the Phoenixes. But the power increased on both tier 1 and tier 2 tower to 200 and 230 respectively. And the Phoenix has the same description here twice, so I feel like it probably has another power increase as well, and that was just forgotten. And the Conquest tutorial has been updated for the new map as well. And then we have the kill bounty change that affects every mode, where assists now provide a gold bonus to players based on their level difference from the kill target rather than the killer's level. So if you're very behind, if you're especially a support, then the kill bounty bonus will help you more. The season ticket, a new fantasy point store. Players will now be able to spend their fantasy points to unlock skins directly. Each patch, a few of these skins will be replaced with new skins, previously only unlockable through chests. Be sure to keep an eye on the store as new skins get rotated in. Points spent on the fantasy point store will not reduce your current season ticket progress. The levels of the season ticket are now tracked by your total earned fantasy points rather than your current amount. So you can buy some extra stuff in between, but you still get these total points, and I'm assuming you also get something for these total points at the end. Additional ways to support your favorite teams will arrive in future patches. This might be global emotes for teams, I'm thinking, just from what we've heard so far and what technology offers at this point. Ranked, new feature, first pick TP bonus. The player who first picks in ranked, will receive bonus 3 TP if the team successfully wins. So basically, if your elo is expecting you to carry, if your TP is expecting you to carry, then you get some extra TP. I wish they would have just completely ditched the TP system for the season. I have no of anyone who actually wants to keep it this way, but they didn't. It's still the same. Not many changes to rank overall, actually. The other one is something for the leaderboards, which doesn't really matter anyways. And then we have the soft reset for the elo, which is no surprise either. But that's it for ranked. Nothing else. Nothing regarding UI either, which I think is very unfortunate. May come at a later point, who knows. Starter items. This one is interesting. I will just not read all of this, but tell you that instead of starter items, we now have blessings. All starter items have been removed from the game, but a lot of the effects are in the new blessings. So, let's go. There's a list of all the starters that have been removed. Doesn't really matter. And all blessings are still considered starter items. Each god may now only get one blessing per match. Once you've bought a blessing, you're locked into it. If you sell it and leave base, you will not be able to buy another, even of the same type. So once you sell it once, it's gone forever. You can only click undo. There are 8 unique blessings divided into 2 sets. The first set is available in Conquest only. The other set is available in all other modes. There are no game modes that will have access to both sets at once. First one, Assassin's Blessing. Assassin's Blessing costs 700 gold, like all other blessings will as well. 35% bonus damage versus jungle monsters, 7% health restored on killing a jungle monster. I'm not quite sure if this counts for small monsters as well, but I think it actually does. 20 mana restored when killing a jungle monster. Roll quest jungle. So this is very obvious that this is for the jungler. Kill assist jungle monsters or enemy gods. That's interesting wording, but it means, yeah, assist killing enemy gods works as well. Jungle monsters are worth 1 stack and enemy gods are worth 5 stacks. At 50 stacks, this item evolves and gives 10 penetration. Quite simple, quite straightforward. I'm very sure that for this one, every stack is a small minion as well, so probably for all of the effects too, when you think about it. And then you only get 10 pen out of it, which is not too crazy, but it's still a nice perk to have early. If you get this quickly, then you can kind of opt out of a pen item into something else early on as well if you want to, because you have the pen that way. which can be quite interesting. Kind of what Rangdas used to do in a way, I guess. So that's cool. Or you just get more pen, which is even nicer in most situations. Overall, a very decent choice for jungling, and the favored option for junglers. No more sharing between mid laner and whatever, because there's no sharing on the set at all. There's no benefit in sharing. You just lose your gold and everything. Sharing, on the other hand, is something for Guardians. Guardian's Blessing, 100 health, 5 physical protection, 5 magical protection, 7 HP and mana restored per lane minion assisted. 3 gold per lane minion assisted. Sounds like Watcher's Gift. But there's also a bonus benefit. Assist with lane minions kills to gain stacks. Each assist is worth 1 stack. At 50 stacks, this item evolves and you gain 3 gold per 5. Now, I know that some people out there went pretty crazy about these 3 gold per 5. It's a pretty decent amount on top of the gold per minion. So overall, I would say this is a decent way to get some extra gold in. And this should definitely help Guardians because, you know, gold per 5 is not dependent on any assists or anything. It's just there, and yeah, you can basically be in base and get that. So Guardian's Blessing, intended for the support, depends on assists because there's no way to kill them yourself, but who knows, maybe we'll see like double runs of those instead. Seems pretty interesting so far, definitely. Hunter's Blessing. Hunter's Blessing is 15 basic attack damage, 5 MP5, and kill or assist lane minions or enemy guards to gain stacks. Lane minions are worth 1 stack and enemy guards are worth 5 stacks. At 75 stacks, Hunter's Blessing evolves, getting 15% attack speed and additional 15 bonus basic attack damage. So 30 basic attack damage and 15% attack speed and 5 MP5. Quite a lot for one starter item, basically. The interesting thing here is that it's not power, it's basic attack damage. So as far as I understand it, it does not apply to the abilities that you use, but rather just the basic attacks, as it says here, only for in-hand damage. So that's very interesting. And it only works for lane minions, so not jungle creeps. So you're also encouraged to do it in the lane, basically. And we have a similar one for mages, which is Mage's Blessing, 30 bonus ability damage. Once again, not power. This is just for the abilities. And then 3 MP5 per 10% mana missing. This is kind of like what we had with Sands of Time. And kill or assist lane minions or enemy guards to gain stacks. Once again, only lane. Lane minions are worth 1 stack and enemy guards are worth 5 stacks. At 75 stacks, Mage's Blessing evolves, gaining 10% cooldown reduction. So very much Sands of Time here. Interesting thing, because everyone can buy every item. I'm not quite sure if this is a glitch at the moment, but it might be intended this way. It kind of is like an option for hunters as well, I think. Because you would get bonus ability damage, and those hunters that primarily clear through abilities, like say, for example, Medusa, might make more use out of this if it works out as planned. Not sure if that's going to be the case, but if it is, that's definitely an interesting choice to keep in mind. Then we have Warrior's Blessing. Warrior's Blessing is for solo lane, for warriors, well duh. 700 gold, 50 health, 3 reduction to all damage taken, which is kind of like what Mark of the Vanguard used to be. 40 of your health is restored upon dealing damage to an enemy guard, 10 seconds cooldown, kind of a mini gladiator shield basically. And dealing damage to an enemy guard provides 1 stack. This effect can only occur once every 10 seconds. Getting a kill or assist on an enemy guard provides 5 stacks. At 15 stacks, Warrior's Blessing evolves, gaining 10 physical and magical protection. Super easy to get, honestly. You only have to deal damage to a guard 15 times. And that's it. It's like you have a cooldown between, obviously. You can't just do it like in a row, but 10-second cooldown. But it's not very hard to get at all. It's a few mentions of slapping in solo lane, basically, and you get those extra protections. I do think overall this is not the craziest starter. It's like the heal part is really nice, and some guards can make really good use of it. But I do think that some warriors might opt out of this and go for something else. They do no longer, on the other hand, have the choice to go into something that is similar to either Bluestone or to Death Toll, which will probably slow down solo lane as well, which I feel like is a part of the intention here. Like less early clear, less damage taken, less kills happening, less kill potential from the jungle as well. Like solo lane will really be more of a solo lane again, because they're harder to kill and they just don't really do much. So that's gonna be interesting too. Then we have Attacker's Blessing. Attacker's Blessing is not for Conquest, so I'm going to go with this a little bit quicker. 20 physical power, 25 magical power. Upon dealing 100 damage, you get 1 stack, and at 50 stacks, you get 10 penetration. Defender's Blessing, 100 health, 10 physical magic protection, and mitigating damage against stacks at 50 damage is 1 stack. At 50 stacks, you get 100 health and mana. Specialist, 700 gold again. 10 MP5, 10 cooldown reduction. Kind of strange that this doesn't have any power, by the way. And damage enemies of heal or heal allies to gain stacks. Each of an enemy's damage on ally god is healed by your abilities. You gain 1 stack. Each ability can trigger up to 3 stacks. At 50 stacks, Specialist Blessing evolves, gaining 10% movement speed. Not quite sure whether this is with trigger up to 3 stacks. If it's like healing 3 at once or whatever, but yeah, those are the outside of Conquest blessings. Interesting stuff. I like the new concept. We'll see how it develops, obviously. I feel like some are a little bit stronger than others at the moment, but I like it overall. I think it's cool. Really interesting if anyone is going to be able to abuse the Guardian's Blessing in solo lane, for example, just intentionally taking assists from the tower to get the extra gold per 5 or something like that. We'll find out. Yet to see that, but definitely interesting. And then we have the items. And that's primarily the mage items. I'm not even going to go through this explanation because basically mages haven't been on the top of their game compared to hunters especially. And they have very forced item with Rod of Tahuti and with Obsidian Shards. And that's going to be changed. And when it comes to Rod of Tahuti, this is not a buff. Please realize that this is not a raw buff. Everyone has been super upset that has heard of the change yet, that this would be like a massive buff. I can assure you it is in some ways a buff, but in some ways it's also a nerf. Decrease the cost from 3,300 to 3,000, that's a buff. Increase the magical power from 125 to 150, that's a buff. New passive, gain 25 additional magic power against targets below 50% health, that's a nerf. Previously, you would get 25% magical power all the time. That means if you have it 50% of the time against a target, it's 12.5 now. That means, if my math isn't wrong, that you will get the same benefit. So you get 25 extra flat power that you didn't have before, right? But at the same time, you lose 12.5% of the extra power that you get from items. That means at 200 power, these items basically go even. The old Rod of Tahuti and the new Rod of Tahuti go even. Before 200 power, the new Rod of Tahuti is better. Beyond 200 power, like I said, if my calculation isn't wrong anywhere, the old Rod of Tahuti would have been better. And you build Rod of Tahuti when you already have more than 200 power, because you have your starter item, you have your boots, you have your pen item, your Obsidian Shard, and you have your 1 power item, and that's always over 200, or almost always at least. So in that situation, Rod of Tahuti will effectively give you less extra damage. The benefit is that it's 300 gold cheaper, which is honestly not that crazy. And I can definitely see more situations where you're going to pick up something else instead as well, because it just benefits your character more or something like that. So it's not a pure buff. In certain other game modes, specifically Assault, you can rush Rod of Tahuti now though, which you couldn't before, which is maybe above there. Doom Orb is super weird. Decreased cost from 2,050 to 1,700. Increased MP5 from 10 to 20. Okay, so far so good. That's a buff. But then, new passive. Killing assisting enemy minion provides you with 1 stack of Doom, granting you 1% movement speed. And 3 power per stack. Lasts 15 seconds and stacks up to 5 times. And you got to provide 5 stacks. So you get 5% movement speed and 15 power. And everything else stays the same, and you don't get the stacks, and you can only get 5. I don't know. If you just cleared the wave with your ability, and you get the extra power afterwards, then you're probably not gonna use the abilities on the enemy. And if you just got a kill, then you don't really need the extra power afterwards. So Doom Up is strange, and I feel like it's not gonna get picked up much from what I can tell so far. Telekine's Ring. Increased cost from 2,400 to 2,800. Strangely enough, on PTS it was actually lowered drastically, down to 2,000. So I'm not sure if it's intended to be increased or actually decreased. Who knows? At a 20% attack speed. New passive. Your basic attacks deal bonus damage of 10 plus 5% of your magical power. This effect does not hit structures. How exactly this works with certain guards, with certain effects, is gonna be, yet to find out. It's definitely an interesting approach, and the fact that his attack speed again means that, mages finally have some attack speed items too, and they didn't really have good access to that previously, so I think this is going to be interesting. I want to see who can make good use of it. Can't tell yet. Then we have Book of the Dead. And by the way, if it's 2,000, it's obviously a lot better if it's 2,800. We'll find out. Book of the Dead. This has been like drastically overhauled. It is book in the book tree now. It has no more lifesteal. None of the 20%. The price is decreased from 2,800 to 2,600, and it has 200 extra mana instead of the 20% lifesteal, which I personally preferred. New passive: if you drop below 50% health, you gain a shield equal to 25% of your current mana. Shield lasts 6 seconds. This effect can only occur once every 90 seconds. Oh, here's the thing. It's 25% of your current mana. If you drop below 50% health of a mage, what are you going to do? You're going to try and use your abilities to get away. You're going to try and use your abilities to deal damage. Anything. But you're not going to be at full mana. Definitely not. And popping the shield here could be theoretically very, very strong if it was from the base mana. But if it's from your current mana, it can also basically be nothing. And it can only happen once every 90 seconds. It also doesn't last very long. As such, I highly preferred Old Book of the Dead, where basically you get the shield beforehand and it lasts forever. And you just have extra health that way, technically. New Book of the Dead feels strange. Niche item, maybe Kukulkan. But even there, I am not entirely sure if it's not, if there's not just better options out there. Sure, later in the game, you have the MP5 and all that. That keeps your mana relatively high, but even then, I would just probably ignore the shield and let it run out, attack someone else in between, unless I'm specifically going for that target, and then another shield of whatever, 600 health at best. There's nothing you actually be too concerned with if you're solo focusing on a mage. It kind of depends on how effective this passive turns out to be, but I personally like the old one better because I feel like it's a little bit weird. Then we have Soul Gem. Soul Gem is an interesting one. 2,300 gold, 65 magical power, 150 health, 12% magical lifesteal, 10% cooldown reaction. That's quite a lot of different stats for an item of a not too high price. Passive: every time you hit an enemy with an ability or basic attack, you gain 1 stack. At 5 stacks, your next ability will deal bonus damage equal to 25% of your magical power and will heal yourself and allies within 30 units of you for 25% of your magical power. That is basically Soulstone with a heal attached. In a way, kind of. And different. Because it's with power, with scaling, 25% scaling. Depending on the circumstances, depending on who and how quickly you can stack that, I feel like this item could be incredibly strong because the stats on it otherwise aren't bad either. It doesn't have the highest power, the highest pen, but it has health, and in return it has some lifesteal, and if you can utilize those stats, that might be very good. The question is how exactly it works with abilities and the stacks. For example, if ticks work, hopefully not, and if multiple instant attacks proc it. Depending on that, it can be really good or just good. But I don't think it's going to be bad either way. Then we have Typhoons Fang. 2,800 gold, 100 magic power, 200 mana, 50% magical lifesteal. Passive: your magical lifesteal from abilities is increased by 50%. Your magical power is increased by the 100% amount of your magical lifesteal that you have. So apparently the second passive here is procced first, not the first one. That would be a little more crazy otherwise. This seems to be like a late game option, kind of like in a way I would say it's a replacement option to Rod of Tahuti for guards going for more lifesteal. It has a little less power, but you have even more lifesteal on it, and you have the extra bonus lifesteal. So if your guard is very lifesteal heavy, I think this can work. I think an Anubis can work. I am not sure if this is gonna have that much viability, but I think magical lifesteal builds are something that we've never really seen, and it could be interesting to see what can happen with them. So I'm kind of for this thing. Let's see. Anti-tank items. Placeholder, yes. Obsidian Shard. Removed 33% magical penetration. Well, oh no. New passive. Your magic damage ignores up to 20% of your target's magical protection. If your target has over 40 magical protections, this effect scales up to ignore a larger percentage of their protection. This caps at 45% magical penetration at 175 or more magical protection. So instead of 33%, you now have 20 to 45%. I don't know where the sweet spot here for the 33% would be. I think it would be somewhere around maybe 70, 80-ish. So like one magical defense item in maybe. Depending on if the scaling is like somewhat exponential or just flat, it might also be higher. We'll find out. And it basically means that against a squishier target, this pen item will now do less damage, so you want to have some sort of flat pen. But against a tankier target, this will do more. I think Obsidian Shard was already pretty good. I don't know how I feel about this, but I see the benefit of basically punishing somebody for high protection stacking in that regard. But then at the same time, there's the question, why does it stop at some point, you know? But then again, 45% is like almost half. That's pretty good. With Titan's Bane, we kind of have the same concept. It starts at 20% as well. Then it goes up over 65 physical protections because, you know, physical protections are generally higher. And it scales up to 175 as well. This one only 40% maximum and not higher than that. Now, that's the only thing I really see for ability-based guards so far, and I think there's not much physical ability-based, more specifically, not much coming. So it's really the question, is that enough? 40% penetration at a high cap, is that going to be enough for an ability-based guard to deal sufficient amount of damage? I think it could be. I think it could be interesting, but we'll have to see. Ethereal Staff. This one's insane. New passive. Your abilities deal an additional 3% of your target's maximum health as true damage. Previously, 5% as magical damage. Might actually end up roughly the same in many situations. But if the target has over 2,000 health, many do, anyone who's like tankier, your ability's bonus damage scales up, capping at 10% max health on 1,750 HP targets. This effect can only occur once every 10 seconds and prioritizes highest max HP targets. And yes, as far as I understand, this works in combination with Soul Reaver, so you can basically chunk 20% max health, true damage, on the right target. That's pretty crazy. That's pretty interesting. I think that's pretty strong. I think Ethereal wasn't bad before, but now there's much more reason to pick it up into tanky comps. Concise. Kinda, once again, a similar thing. Basic attacks deal 3% of the maximum target's health in physical damage. If the target has over 2,000 health, your basic attacks bonus damage scales up, capping at 5% max health on 2,750 HP targets. This only affects guards. So we go up from 3% to max 5%, not quite as crazy. Still, Kins are being buffed in a meta where Kins was already good. Maybe on that point, it's a good note to make here. Devils and X are both not nerfed at all. Boots and shoes. This one I like. So boots price increase from 300 to 500. Tier 1 boots more expensive. But on the other hand, starters are 100 gold cheaper as well. Keep that in mind. Royal Tabe increased from 1,550 to 1,600. Ninja Tabe from 1,500 to 1,550. Hilario Boots. Cost increased from 1,400 to 1,600. And it added 15 MP5. Increase your movement speed from 18% to 25% at all times. New passive, you gain 20% additional movement speed after leaving the fountain. This effect lasts 7 seconds. I'm going to read this out as well. Hilario Boots and travel shoes are going to be redesigned. The previous passive was not only difficult to keep track of, but would also cause some issues on the newest map. Out of combat speed and unreliable gold gained. Both were counterproductive to our goals of adding tougher rotations and better pacing out farm. Okay. We have shifted the focus of these boots shoes to be more constant movement speed and making returning to base less punishing. This not only provides a strong option for Conquest players, but also allows players in other modes to go fast. And you do go fast. If you build this in jungle in combination with speed buff, you go really fast, really early in the game. Do not underestimate what 25% movement speed can do for you. It's better than Swift Ring plus boots for 1,600 gold. It's crazy. Obviously, you don't get the gold anymore, and you don't get as much power on the physical version which you get to, but it's pretty crazy. Shoes here, the same thing. And yeah, Traveler's Shoes. Add 15 MP5, increased movement speed. I think they actually decreased the power, I'm not sure, but it doesn't say here. So maybe they just scrapped that part. But yeah, it's pretty crazy, and you still have that 20% movement speed out of fountain. You're gonna be so fast. It's insane. I think these ones will be meta for at least support in jungle, if not more than that, because you're gonna be so fast and you're gonna stick to target so easily. All right, then stacking item overhaul. All stacking items evolve to show final stats or gain a new effect, which I think is much easier to keep track of as well. And then we're moving to magical items. Magical power items being adjusted overall. Chronos Pendant increased the cost from 2,750 to 2,800, increased the magical power from 80 to 100. So now you could say, hey man, Duke, I know you had Chronos Pendant, but the power is increased. It's better. We can finally build it, right? It's better now. But then you scroll down a little bit and you see Spirit of Desolation also getting that same power increase. Spirit of Desolation, on the other hand, gets a reduction in 15 penetration and threat of... Let's try that one again. Spirit of Desolation gets a decrease from 20 magical penetration to 15 magical penetration, 5 reduction, but that's it. That's not a major nerf at all. Overall, I think in many situations, the 20 power extra is actually the better buff. Though, again, Wrath of the Hoodie bonus damage is a little bit weaker. And I think there's no reason, there's still no reason to build Chronos Pendant or Spirit of Desolation unless you're like a healer or something. So everything says that it is. I don't think Spirit of Desolation even needed this buff. I think just nerfing it would have been fine with how popular it is at the moment. Divine Ruin, another item that's very popular, especially in competitive with how strong it is. Decreased cost from 2,400 to 2,300. Increased magical penetration from 10 to 15. I don't know why. I don't think Divine Ruin needed any buffs. I think people just didn't realize how good it is, but I know what I built on my mages. Spear of the Magus. Increased cost from 2,150 to 2,300. Increased magical power from 50 to 65. Gives it a bit more late game value, I think. Makes it a bit more expensive at the same time. I can see this change making sense. I think for certain gods you can actually consider Spear of the Magus plus Obsidian Shard more as well. I know it's counterproductive because it's reduction, but I think in this context it may make sense because Spear of the Magus stretch all the low values of protections, and Obsidian Shard takes care of every high value. And if you combine the two, take apart both. Or you can obviously invest into Flat Pen in other ways, but yeah, I think it's going to be interesting. Then Spell Focus reduced magical penetration from 22% to 15%, so you want to upgrade that. And then Soul Reliquary changed its name to Spellbook. Soul Trap changed its name and icon to Book of Souls. So this is now the book tree. Soul Reaver increased the magical power from 100 to 120. Again, Ethereal also got a buff, so if you combine the both, you can burst hard with a lot of power and a lot of true damage, and that's gonna be pretty crazy. And I feel like Soul Reaver on some gods, not necessarily always, has way more competition with Rod of the Hoodie now than it did before, if you're just looking for that single combo burst kind of stuff. You can obviously still get both, but just saying. Polynomicon, blah blah blah. This item has been moved from the trinket to the book tree. Icon adjusted. Enchanted Trinket removed 100 mana, added 100 health. Polynomicon, this item has been moved to the book tree. Another new logo as well. Pythagoras Piece, removed 200 mana, added 200 health. More of a supporty style, or at least survivability style. There, once again, interesting. Gonna see how that interacts with the new aura, because it has lifesteal and aura, and then you have the new lifesteal increasing effect. So I think that's gonna work together, and that's gonna be interesting. Talon Trinket, added 100 mana. Book of the Dead, this item has been moved to the book tree. Bancroft Selling, added 150 mana. Changed the staff tree, or sash tree. Sash trees changed to the staff tree. And that's Uncommon Sash is now Uncommon Staff. Golden Sash is now Golden Staff. And Warlock Sash is now Warlock Staff. But Warlock Staff actually gets some changes. Decreased the base health from 300 to 200 by 100. Increased magical power from 50 to 75. Increased scaling health from a passive from 3 HP per stack to 4 per stack. So on 100 stacks, you have what? Exactly 100 health extra, meaning the decrease from what you get at the start is negated. So basically, what will happen is you will have the same amount of health when it's fully stacked, but you have 100 less at the start. But the power increase remains. And I'm surprised. I'm surprised that the power increase remains because Warlock Sash was even in competitive picked up by anyone who wasn't like early pressure oriented. And it's a very strong late game item and people know that. And with more base power and nothing else that, you know, really gets chunked away, I think this is pretty crazy. So I don't know about this. The reasoning here. However, Warlocks still need to scale into the later stages of the game and mages need additional magical power with a change to Rough Tahuti. Like, do they really need additional power everywhere? Just saying, you know, like, I'm not sure. Like, 25 extra power. That's 50% increase of the power on Warlock Sash at the start. More clear, more pressure. I guess minions are stronger as well, so that kind of makes sense. But this is going to be a heavy hitter, and I feel like Warlock Sash is going to get picked up a lot more. Or Warlock Staff now, sorry. And that brings us to the physical items. The Crusher, new passive. Your abilities now deal bonus damage over time equal to 30 plus 15% of your physical power over 2 seconds. You know, if you have 100 power, this is 15 extra damage plus 30, so 45. If you have 200 power, then you have 60 extra damage on an ability. Kind of like Bluestone, but more. That applies for every damaging ability, I'm assuming, as before. Crusher's old passive is gone. I like that kind of cooldown reset mechanic. It was niche, but it was interesting. That's not there anymore. Instead, you're having a Bluestone Crusher. Is it worth it? Not 100% sure because you still have to consider that enemies have protections that reduce this value. And the big benefit of Bluestone was how early in the game you got it and how much damage it did then. Not sure if it's the same thing, if it's a 2,000 something gold item. But it still has some nice stats outside of that, so it's not terrible. Transcendence. Headed 10% cooler reaction. Transcendence is a staple high power physical power item, giving a large portion of mana and physical power for heavy ability users. With this single focus, it was okay, but it's difficult to justify building this over a more flexible item that gave complementary stats. We added cooler reaction to Transcendence to make it more attractive compared to other power items. Actually, Transcendence was just not picked up because Devils is too strong, you know? That's all it is. Every hunter plays Devils, every ability hunter plays Devils because it's too good. It has nothing to do with Transcendence. Now, some hunters are going to pick up Transcendence, but I feel like hunters are getting pushed more and more into a state where they are incredibly strong and giving them that option for counter action. I don't know, you know, junglers might put it, like, consider it more now with the counter action, but still, as a jungler, you kind of want to not slow down your farm more than necessary and your kill potential, and that's what you're doing with Transcendence. I don't know, dude. I don't know whether it's necessary. But Transcendence late game is still gonna be pretty good now. Like, it's gonna be strong, and if you can justify building it like after it Jotens, you have like a very high amount of cooldown reduction, a very high amount of power. If you can get like something like Jotens, Trends, Hydras maybe, 40% cooldown reduction, and every single basic after ability is going to hit very, very hard. So that could be interesting. So let's see. Void Shield added 100 health, reduced physical power from 30 to 20, increased physical protection from 40 to 50. So Void Shield was pretty lackluster overall, especially in comparison to Mystical Mail. I talked about this in a very recent video actually, and we're seeing this adjusted. I think it's good, you know. Extra tankiness on this item so it can compete well with Mystical Mail while still fulfilling its purpose. Obviously, it loses a bit of aggression potential for the power, but I think we'll see more Void Shield again. Blackthorn Hammer. New passive. While over 50% mana, you gain 10% cooldown reaction. While under 50% mana, you gain 50 MP5. Now, what you have to keep in mind is that Blackthorn Hammer in itself doesn't have bad stats, right? It has decent stats. It was always a passive that was wonky. Now, certain gods, I think, can do pretty well with this. Especially self-healing gods like, say, Guan Yu, Tyr, Hercules. You know, you get that extra cooldown reduction when you're in a good situation where you can fight and where you can trade. And when you get too low, then you just switch over to the MP5, and that way you can spam your heal mode, because 50 MP5 is insane. So I think this is pretty good. I think this is pretty scary, actually. I do believe that, sorry, I said 50% health, 50% mana. It's all about the mana. My bad. So, anyways, so you spam your ability. It doesn't matter. Still the same gods, basically. You spam your abilities until you run out of mana, and once you run out of mana, your mana's just coming back because you get a massive amount of MP5. So your sweet spot is like hanging like slightly above 50%, beating down on the enemy. I think this is actually so good for some mana-hungry gods. I'm actually even thinking that some gods, like some assassins, could make use of this. Maybe a Willish or something. Somebody who just burns through mana. Can just spam abilities with that insanely well, and then has a cooldown reaction otherwise. So Blackthorn, definitely something to keep an eye on for. Atlantis Bow, increased movement speed, buff duration from 3 to 7 seconds. Yeah, I guess. Don't think it's gonna get picked up. Doubt it. Maybe. I have to look at the stats in detail again, but I don't think it does really. I just don't like Atlantis stats in comparison to, especially this bad boy right here. Echival's passive now also reduces magical power by 15 per stack. So Silver Branch Bow is implemented into Echival in terms of its passive. They are the same item now. Really interesting. A lot more powerful that way. But Silver Branch Bow, on the other hand, every successful basic attack increases your attack speed by 5% and reduces your opponent's attack speed by 5% for 3 seconds. Max 3 stacks. This is weird. I feel like the power steal is more effective, especially in early when it comes to ability trading and all that kind of stuff. But this attack speed steal is really, it's just an interesting mechanic. And effectively, if you're trading someone with Echival and you get the first hit, you slow down the time until they can get their steal by stealing their attack speed. Bit of a mind game here, I guess. Overall, I would still probably prefer Echival, but I feel like there's gonna be some weird place where Silver Branch somehow gets its use. I could imagine some attack speed-based assassins making use of this as well. Like maybe Bakasura, or even though he doesn't really need many attack speed items, or Kali. Like, just go into your enemy and steal the attack speed that way. Anyone who starts their attack chain with an 0.5 attack, like Arachne as well, and benefits mostly from attack speed, could be interesting. Also pretty cheap. Deathbringer. Ha. I'll read this one out because it's interesting. Deathbringer and Malice have often competed for dominance, with the distinction being mostly an involved math equation to figure out which one is better, with Deathbringer often winning because it was instant damage. Deathbringer is being shifted to work better on gods that want to consistently crit, like Hunters. With a strong amount of critical strike chance, with a smaller damage boost, its contrast with Malice is more clearly for gods with ability-based crits. Reduced cost from 3,000 to 2,800. Increased critical strike chance from 20% to 35%. Reduced passive critical damage buff from 40% to 25%. So 15% crit chance, and in return 15% less damage and 200 gold decrease. Overall, I would say that it's probably a buff. Obviously, crit always has some luck involved. But especially if you get Rage and Deathbringer, you will very quickly reach a very high crit threshold, basically. A very high chance to crit. Even though the crits won't deal quite as much extra damage as before, they will still deal decent enough extra damage anyways. So I think this is interesting. Basically, you won't ever go above 3 crit items if you have Rage and Deathbringer and Rage stacked. So this is very interesting, I think. And Malice obviously gets more of its own niche, which I like, because Malice was so rarely bought. So let's see how much this actually gets picked up. But 35% crit chance on a 2,800 gold item is a lot. And I feel like it actually pushes out some of the other crit items kind of in how well it performs in terms of just crit chance and the raw power that it has. Hide of the Urchin, now apparently a dress. Reduced protections per stack from 3 to 2. Now evolves at max stacks, providing a new effect. You gain 100 health plus 5 per level shield that regenerates a small portion of the shield every 3 seconds while out of combat. The full shield will regenerate after 30 seconds. And the thing is, right? You have to fully stack it first to evolve it. That's a downside, because until then it's just straight up weaker. It's just less protections per stack. Instead of 30 total, it's 20, so you lose 10 each. And you lose 10 protections for 100 health plus up to another 100. So up to 200 health. That only works conditionally, right? If you get poked out, you can't regenerate that immediately because it takes a while to regenerate after you're out of combat. I don't know if that's worth it. I feel like the old Urcha was better. but I understand why it's being done. I feel like a lot of players that were looking to Urchin previously might now be looking more towards the new Gauntlet of Thieves. In support, at least, because I think that makes more sense in that regard. Magi's Cloak renamed to Cleric's Cloak. Magi's Blessing renamed to Magi's Cloak. Sure. That's been the same name for multiple seasons. I wish they would stick to Magi's Blessing because everyone says that. Talisman of Energy. 2,250 gold. 50 magical protection. 300 health. Getting a kill or an assist on an enemy causes you and your allies within 55 units to gain stacks of energy. Energy stacks provide 1% movement speed, 1% attack speed, and 5 MP5 per stack. Lasts 6 seconds and stacks up to 10 times. This is so strange. This is like War Flag with a magical protection item. I don't know. I don't know why. Like, first of all, why is it magical protection? If you want to build this early, this should be a physical protection choice. And it's a passive that you want to utilize early mostly because it's like something that works either around minions or around team fights, I suppose, to some degree. But is 10% movement speed max and 10% attack speed max if you get the full stacks worth it? I personally don't think so. We'll see. Still not a fan of that effect overall. Hardwood Amulet increased health from 200 to 250, increased magical protection from 45 to 55. Pretty decent buff, so that's going to be good. And now here we have the Gauntlet of Thieves. Increased cost from 2,150 to 2,400. Decreased health from 300 to 200. New passive. For each assist on a lane minion, gain 1 stack. Stacks provide 1 physical protection and 1 magic protection. Evolves at 50 stacks, so 50 protections each. Evolved passive provides an aura of 20 magical protections to you and allied guards within 70 units. Big radius, 70 units, 20 magical protection, plus 50 magical protection, so 70 magical protection in total, 20 of that for your teammates, and 50 for you and 200 health. Pretty good for its stats, I think. Pretty strong. I think that's going to be a very, well, not core, well, maybe actually a core item for most support builds, because it just has a bit of everything. But not only that, Ratatoskr, when 3 or more enemy guards within 55 units of you, you gain a 5% damage mitigation buff. Don't think that's going to be as effective as the previous passive, where you would have a more conditional situation, but you'd also get more mitigation out of it. Because if it was 3 guards, I'd see it, but if it's 3 enemy guards, I don't know. 5 mitigation is never bad, don't get me wrong, but 5% mitigation for these conditions, having these enemies really close to you, I feel like it's not going to last long enough for it to be effective compared to it's like a spirit robe or something like that. And then we have Sovereignty, talking about Gauntlet of Thieves here as well. Increased health from 200 to 250 and increased physical protection from 40 to 50. I've done a comparison on Jade Emperors and Sovereignty not too long ago. They kind of, went into more competition than before. In some regards, Jade Emp was simply still better due to the higher damage increase for the enemy, but Sov had the bigger benefit of, bigger radius and sustain, especially for later stages of the game. With Sov getting another buff, I think this is shifting more towards Sov, and Jade Emp is becoming more of the niche option. And then, especially if you combine Sov, or the extra physical protection, with Gauntlet of Thieves, as a first choice, basically, for the extra magical protection, I think you're all set in many situations. So obviously, sometimes you will just want to go straight into Hardwood here, which has more health right off the bat, and it has that extra protection, from scratch. You don't have to have stacks first, but Thieves overall with these mixed protections is just very, very potent. Maybe it's something going to be something like Sovereignty into Thieves quite often, from what I expect so far. Spectral Armor. Decreased physical protection from 70 to 60. New passive critical strikes deal 50% bonus damage to you instead of 100%. Meh. Okay, I guess if you need a complete anti-crit item on your specific guard, then sure, but I just really like the old passive. The old passive, in my opinion, had a wait long cooldown, but it was so nice to counter certain guards like Tyr, like Loki, anyone, that specifically gets countered by Interrupted and their initial initiation. And that's gone, which I think is unfortunate. But I know that at least Ajax didn't like the old passive. He said that he didn't like the fear effect because it felt very strong when it procced, but it was also too conditional, and that part I agree with a lot, that in many situations you would, get it procced by a hunter and nothing would happen, and in others it would be procced too earlier by the wrong guy and you don't get the effect. So I can see why it's changed, but I really like the old one. Chalice of the Oracle. Reduce cost from 400 to 300. That means that even with a starter and boots, if you don't get pots, if you just get a starter and boots, you can buy Chalice at the start. And I think that's going to be crucial here. I think that's going to be the most important part. The possibility even to consider Chalice right at the start of the game is something very, very interesting, or on the first back otherwise. And I think more on the first back. I think it's more going to be like starter item plus boots plus pots, and then you back once and you get the Chalice. But 300 is really not that much for what you get out of it. It's 6 wards placed on the map until you get the value out of it. And all calculations reconsidered, I think Chalice is in a much better place where it's much more viable to be picked up than before now. Chalice of Oracle, that is. Aegis Amulet. Aegis Amulet, along with Purification Beads, have been the go-to defensive relics for most of Smite's history. We believe that these 2 items add an interesting skill component to the game. Don't know whether they're very skillful, but whatever. And are important to the core rules of counterplay. However, Aegis, even more than Beads, resulted in being too forgiving of players who should have died. We're turning down power levels of Aegis through its duration and cooldown to ensure it required proper skill and timing to be effective. Instead of 2 seconds and only lasts 1.5 seconds, instead of having 160 seconds cooldown, it has 180 seconds. Same for the upgrade, same duration, and the cooldown is increased by another 20 seconds to 150 seconds as well. Aegis nerfed, good, will still be picked up. That's all I gotta say. Cursed Ankh upgrade. This is crazy. Cursed Ankh is quite potent as a pure anti-healing relic, but its previous upgrade was not valued very highly. We are doubling down on its anti-heal properties to make sure that the relic upgrade is as viable as other relic upgrades. Its application is specific but powerful. Remove the debuffs that increase mana cost and cooldown. Good, that was wonky anyways. I didn't like that. Now applies a new curse effect. If you are healed by an ability while this effect is active, you take 20% more damage from all sources. This effect does not extend the duration of the curse. A new effect, blah, blah, blah. That's super interesting to me because this basically means if somebody has a heal that's already going, like, for example, Sylvanas here, any ongoing self here, Herc heal, anything like that, somebody procs a cursed Ankh on you, you're not only not gonna get healed, you're also gonna take more damage. Obviously, if you're under the effect while you're healing yourself, like before you're healing yourself, you probably won't heal yourself. You'll be like, oh, I'm cursed, never mind, unless you don't notice. But those who cannot prevent the heal from happening, Amaterasu even, anyone like that, they will take so much more damage when this happens. And I think this is a very interesting effect. Think of it kind of like a Puash, but more damage. And 20% more damage is a heavy hitter from all sources. That's like almost a Road to Hootie for everyone, basically. Okay, bit drastic, you get the idea. Hand of the Gods has been removed from the game. Hand of the Gods upgrade has been removed from the game. Goodbye, Sweet Prince. No more objective secure with a fist. I'm sad. I miss this. I liked it. I thought it was going to make a comeback after some things, but whatever. Shield of Thorns. I'd say it. I thought it was going to make a comeback after after the last game of the SPL, where Rival unfortunately lost multiple objectives, and if a Hand of the Gods would have been in there, they could have secured them. Well, Shield of Thorns. If you are dealt 150 times your level damage while this effect is active, Shield of Thorns will end early, and the same goes for the upgrade. I think this is a heavy nerf to Thorns. On level 1, this is 150 reflect now. On level, like 150 damage that you can take until the reflect is over. Level 2, that's 300, it scales up quite quickly, but especially when hit by multiple different sources of damage, this is a significant nerf, and it has significantly less impact this way, which I think is very, very unfortunate. So really, I don't know. I think this is rough for any user of this item. This is a quite drastic nerf. God balance. We're at God balance. Now all mages have magical protection scaling of 0.9 per level. All mages. All right. And we have a lot of gods that have their movements been increased to like 355. But we have a nerf in between. AMC, Hive, decreased attack speed buff from 10% to 50% to 10% to 30%, decreased movement speed buff from 10% to 30% to 5% to 25%. Very justifiable. AMC has been overperforming in pretty much any level of play. The Hives were too good. Off you go. He's still going to be alright, I'm pretty sure, but just not as crazy on his own. Ao Kuang, there's a slight nerf, but also tweak for theme. Ao Kuang heals himself for quite a significant amount upon executing an enemy, but this effect happened very early in the animation. Now Ao Kuang will heal as he chomps his prey rather than immediately on hitting. Self-heal on this ability now triggers after Ao Kuang has executed a target and flown up into the air. That's mostly a nerf, because there's so many glitch interactions with Ao Kuang Ultimate that is mostly a nerf, but it's a nerf. Just should have just said it's just a nerf. Ares increased base movement speed from 360 to 365. Kukulin, multiple nerfs. Good. Reduced base HP 5 from 9 to 7. A little less sustained there. Spear of Mortal Pain and Warcry. Increased cooldown from 90 seconds to 100 seconds. Also justifiable of how often he was able to use both, because he basically only has half a cooldown if he goes into Berserk. I feel like he might actually need more nerfs than this. I think he's still a bit too strong in some levels of play. But I'm always happy when we see him nerfed. Fafnir. Curse Strength. Decreased stun duration from 1.5 seconds to 1 second in both Dwarf and Dragon form. What? This one's crazy to me. This one is weird to me. Like, his stun is not the easiest to hit because of the lay on the hammer. And I understand that Fafnir needs nerfs. But nerfing his only real non-conditional single target hard CC? I don't know about that. I think nerfing the slow around it would have been an idea. Nerfing his dragon form buffs maybe would have been an idea. But this one is strange. Oh well. Maybe, though, the new starter will make up for it with the extra gold per 5 seconds. That will kind of buff him in a way. So, and there's some other effects. Like, for example, you could proc Ethereal off him, which is now better too. There's some reasons for that, I think. But it's still kind of rough to me that this is the nerf they're taking. I think we'll see less Fafnir because of this, unless the other things compensate for it. Halbar gets his base movement speed increase from 350 to 355. Hell gets the same. Capri up to 365 movement speed. Kuzenbo has his base health per level increased from 95 to 100. Also a little bit of extra tankiness for Mr. Nene. I dig that. And here comes the low-key buff. Everyone. It's a low-key buff. Right on the Reddits. And Lice, low-key get buffed. Decoy. Decreased cooldown from 14 seconds to 12 seconds. Increased damage from 75 to 275 to 90 to 290. Why is that? Because minions have more health, so you need some help clearing. You know. And there's an interesting description here. With the upcoming changes to Conquest, junglers are much more reliant on Assassin's Blessing to play effectively. Loki's decoy does not benefit from this item as it is a pet, resulting in his clear being heavily reduced compared to other guards. We are reducing the cooldown and increasing its damage to help him compete in the jungle or in lane in Season 5. I don't know if this will help Loki in the jungle all that much, but we'll see. Movement speed might help him more, actually, from the stealth. Nike has this long wall of text, which is really interesting. And somehow people thought this was a nerf. But I'm going to read this out, actually. No, I'm going to read this out. Nike's balance is quite the interesting topic. Since the release, Nike has been one of the most winning guards in the game, at every skill level, even after multiple nerfs and adjustments. This includes both casual conquest and at high levels of ranked, but she does take a hit at the very highest, where she is only in the top 20 guards. The likely explanation is that Rend, although it seems easy to interrupt, is often allowed to deal full damage to enemies, hitting for near ultimate levels of damage. At the highest level of ranked, this is heavily mitigated by skilled interrupts. With this in mind, we wanted to make 2 adjustments. First, we want to reduce the damage this ability does, which should impact her performance at all levels and bring her win rate closer to the rest of the guards. With this, however, we are allowing Rend to be knockback immune, giving players a more reliable access to this damage, which is an important factor at high level play. Since her case is so unique, being statistically strong, but most players not feeling this level of strength, we are going to watch this change very closely over the next few patches. Nike is now knockback immune while channeling this ability, which also means knock up in pretty much any context, unless it was changed this season, because knockback and knock up give the same immunity basically, and decreased damage from 50 to 190 to 50 to 170. That's just a 5 decrease per rank. That's not too much. I think not being interrupted helps a lot more in many, many matchups, and the immunity especially, you know. It's not just not being interrupted, it's literally being immune, so she can't get pushed by anyone while she's channeling this. And that's pretty damn strong. So that takes away a lot of the counter matchups for solo for her. And I think overall this will help her more than it does against her. So yeah, I think like he's good with this. Not a nerf, not in my book. Ra, increased movement speed from 350 to 355. Ragin gets nerfs, no surprise. He was doing pretty well. Reduced base damage from 30 to 90 to 25 to 85 per shot on Percussive Storm. This means overall, instead of 360 max, it's 340 max. Raichu reduced damage to targets beyond the first from 15 to 55 plus 13% to 9 to 33 plus 8% scaling per tick. Quite a significant chunk away from that damage, but at the same time I can understand it, especially with mage items getting buffs too. And Taiko Drums increased cooldown from 90 seconds to 100 seconds. Ratatoskr is one of the few gods we are adjusting in anticipation of Season 5. Ratatoskr's global presence combined with his ability to upgrade his Acon out of base allows him to exert a lot of pressure in Season 5. Rather than nerf these unique aspects of him, we targeted Dad's cooldown, which helps him his overall mobility and increase the cost of Acon Blast. Ratatoskr players will need to manage their mana more carefully. Now, there's one important thing that's not really noticed or mentioned here, I think, and that's the fact that Ratatoskr is a god that cannot build Travelers / Stellaria. And I'm pretty sure all the other junglers are going to do that. So, despite this statement here, I'm pretty sure that actually the opposite is going to happen and the rat's going to fall off pretty hard already because he just doesn't have access to the same amount of movement speed that the others do in the same way. But oh well. Dart increased cooldown from 12 seconds to 14 seconds. Acon Blast increased mana cost from 60 to up to 80. 60 to 80. Bit of a nerf here and there. The mana cost I don't think matters all too much. The Dart does. And it would be ironic if he ends up being trashed here because he can't pick up Stellaria or Travelers, and in this nerf was completely unneeded. So I'm just playing with some thoughts here, but I feel like that's what's gonna happen. Raven has been too good. Built up. Decreased base health from 470 to 450. Decreased damage mitigation buff from 20 to 40% to 10% to 30%. Honestly, it does a little bit, especially the Mystic Rush part, but I think he's still going to be almost in the same place. And I think he's going to be one of the warriors that after this patch can still jungle, where some other warriors maybe aren't as jungly anymore. Some still are. Scylla. Base movement speed decreased from 350 to 355. Base health per level increased from 68 to 75. Scylla was not performing very well for a very long time, so that's very understandable. SLOTH. Hieroglyphic Assault. Increased base damage from 35 to 115 to 40 to 120. What? Why? Thought? What? Yep. Huh? Thoth, on the other hand, often was thought of as OP, while his stats were absolutely dismal. In the late stages of Season 4, we finally saw the pro-prioritization of Thoth dwindling. This helped spread the news that he maybe wasn't as strong as players thought, so his rank prioritization dropped soon after. He can now finally get another buff, which he surely needs. As one of the lowest damage mages, we plan to increase his core damage abilities to help him clear and poke a little better. Now here's the thing, right? We didn't see many mages at the end of Season 4 in competitive specifically. We mostly saw Ragin and Discordia. We saw a little bit, Isis, a little bit Poseidon, a little here and there. Morrigan. But it's not like Thoth wouldn't have been picked. It's more like other gods were just insanely good and too good to pass up on, and first ban, first pick material most of the time, as soon as their strength was seen. And at least one player, being Zeros, who likes to play SLOTH, not being at the finals. I don't think he needed that buff. I still don't think he needed that buff. I think this guy's... I think he wasn't broken anymore. I think he was in a decent place. But I don't think he needed this. Even though it's not the craziest buff, it's still extremity that I feel he didn't need. Tier. Power Cleave. Increased the heal physical power scaling from 0% to 20%. Tier buff was needed. This time, it actually was. The healing on his cleave has been drastically lowered due to the fact that it's only one target now and not the double target on a single hit. Instead, he gets some scaling. Thing is, Tyr doesn't really build much power. You maybe build your boots and you maybe build like Masamune and Tyne's Bane at very best if you want to build a lot of power. But you're never going to be like far above 100. So it will be like 20 extra heal, meaning like if you hit 3 targets, that's like 60 extra heal. That's not crazy. That's fine. That's okay. Gives him a little bit. He may need it. Bluestone is also gone. Many warriors, many solo laners will have an anti-early damage item now as well, so it's going to be harder to kill them anyways. So I can see this. I'm actually very okay with this. Ymir increased base movement speed from 360 to 365. Whew. That's it. So, what am I missing? I'm missing UI changes, I'm missing Devil's nerfs, I'm missing Executioner adjustments, and I'm missing Ullr nerfs. Mostly. Sure, there's some other things that I'm like, where's this? But I just want the UI changes. I want the minimal UI. We heard so much about the UI, and I still want the HUDs on the side, and I don't know what's happening. So yeah, that I wish was happening. As for everything else, I'm very happy with the changes. I like the new map. I like how it feels. I think it's gonna be cool. I think the Chaos side still looks a little bit too dark, a little bit too dull. I wish that would have been a little bit different. Exactly. Would have been a little bit different, but overall, I'm happy. Overall, I think this is nice. I can go to Season 5 knowing that I can farm on my own in my jungle with my Hilario Boots for a while at least, get my speed buff on my own, get my next speed buff when the speed buff is down so I can run around fast all the time, learn new rotations. I think especially for junglers, the entire playstyle has to change because you now have to know how exactly to rotate from camp to camp to make it back to your camp in time in the most efficient way, and all of that kind of stuff. So that's very cool to me personally. That all in mind, I'm looking forward to Season 5. I think these changes are good. I like the new skins as well, but that's just a side note. Overall, I like the changes. I'm okay with like tanks not being nerfed as much. I was hoping for some more things for ability-based gods, but we have some things that we yet have to, fully figure out, like new Transcendence, new Blackthorn Hammer, that may have a bigger impact or may have a different impact from what people initially expect. With that, I'm also back. For those of you watching me on YouTube mostly, I will be making videos from now on again. Have been gone for a while. As you can hear maybe, and as you can see, I'm in the new flat, no green screen yet. Quite a few things have changed, and yeah, I'm back on the grind. With that, thank you guys very much for watching. If you're new to the channel, which is not completely unlike it with Season 5, feel free to click that sub button and maybe the bell. It really helps me out. Other than that, see you for the next one tomorrow, or maybe later today, depending on if I get something for PTS out. DukeSloth, out.